I was wrong about it all. All living things, in all realities, are about to die.
My initial reaction after watching this movie is probably going to mirror a lot of other viewers, which is, thank God that this is the second part of a trilogy. Part 2 of this trio of movies meant to end the Tomorrowverse is frankly a step down from its predecessor. While the story told in part 1 exceeded my expectations in almost every conceivable level, that is not the case for the second installment. This movie also tries to employ some of the tactics that part 1 had used, essentially using the previous movies as background information and sort of tying in everything together, specifically using Justice Society World War II and Legion of Superheroes. Unfortunately, because the predecessor had actually done a really good job explaining everything up to this point, it comes off as unnecessary. And the worst part is, this takes up 1/3 of the entire movie. So instead of being more like Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, we essentially get a rehash of Justice League Warworld. And I think everyone will agree we do not need another Justice League Warworld. There's another issue that crops up here, which is I feel that this movie goes out of its way to have as many of Crisis on Infinite Earths comic moments, like moments from the comics, not haha funny moments, but unfortunately, because a lot of them haven't been set up at all, it's just needless padding. For instance, there are two characters who have played virtually no role so far, not only in this Crisis trilogy, but throughout the entire Tomorrowverse, and yet somehow they get 2 whole scenes dedicated to them, just because they were kinda sorta players during the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic book. There are several other decisions like this, and it does not work at all. I'm gonna share something with you. When I saw that the first movie had focused exclusively on Barry Allen telling his story, I thought that they were going to do something similar for the next two. Specifically because of the trailers, I expected that this movie would focus heavily on Supergirl, while the third one would focus on a different character. I was expecting that to be the Earth 2 Superman, but we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. But while Supergirl does get a decent amount of focus here, there's also a lot of focus placed on another character who is, I'm not going to spoil him, but he was kind of important in Justice Society World War II, and we spend a lot of time on his backstory as well. We also see a lot of needless padding, and what hurts is that the entire thing ends rather unsatisfactorily with a cliffhanger. This essentially means that it is impossible to recommend Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 on its own merits the same way I would recommend Part 1. Mainly because there is far too much backstory that needs to be explained. It ends on a cliffhanger, and while these movies are definitely best viewed all together, Part 1 can be enjoyed on its own merits. This one, because of the needless focus on two characters' backstories for like 1/3 of the movie, and and the remaining 2/3 containing unnecessarily high amounts of filler, it really drags down the entire viewing experience. The artwork and voice acting are what you would expect. There's nothing that really stands out here. There's nothing that really like detracts from the entire experience. It's okay for what you come to expect with these movies. If you like it, you like it. If you hate it, you hate it at this point. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I went into this one with a lot of high expectations, and they dropped the ball phenomenally with this one. There are a lot of comic book moments from the Crisis on Infinite Earths story, which will make you go, aha, I recognize that. But I think at this point, it's not really a controversial thing to say that adaptations don't necessarily need to be one-to-one of the source material. They need to, like, just adapt the spirit of whatever they're doing, which I feel part one did so well. This is a huge step down in that regard. Well, fingers crossed for part three, I guess.
Reporting an unusual development from Earth 2.
If it's to tell us that some kind of shadow demons are peeling themselves off the walls, save your breath.